What's up, guys? Today's video is about the biggest bodybuilding discovery I ever made. You can build muscle without the gym. Many of us fall into doing what's normal, even if we don't mean to. Anyone without much knowledge, well, if they decide that they want to get bigger and stronger, their first thought is, I gotta go to a gym. That's what everyone else does, right? But what if you could build reliable, strong muscle without the gym while also becoming proficient at a skill? Now, before you guys go clicking off this video, I do need to say one thing, and this will apply to the entirety of the rest of this video. I know that you guys aren't stupid. People have been trying to sell you things your entire life, and at this point, the cat is out of the bag, you might say. If you see a video that says, build big biceps with this one gymnastics exercise, we realize that's a gimmick, okay? If your main goal is to build bigger biceps, just do a curl. The person who made that video is probably trying to sell you something, right? But we can say, when it's not used for that sole purpose, developing a skill or doing something outside of the gym, outside of just doing a straight up curl, is a valid approach, and that's what I want to talk about today. All right, and with all that said, let's get right into it. You can build muscle without the gym. There is endless data proving this. We've been hearing this stuff for years, but sometimes it takes a little bit to sink in. It takes a little while. Think of the sprinter who builds massive quads just by applying force into the ground. The stone lifter who builds the massive back, and I can attest to that one personally. Megan from Team 3D Alpha has been talking about this for like a decade at least, I think, with his nucleus overload approach. The guys who carry things all day and get massive traps. I recently experienced something like this myself where I did endless junk volume on pull-ups and my lats got wider, though you could say that's kind of a gym exercise. I also remember hearing a story a while back and it always kind of stuck with me. Imagine you're like a 13-year-old boy and you get thrown into working at a lumber mill. One of those old-fashioned lumber mills where you gotta chop down the trees and then drag them for about a mile to where they get processed. And you do that 12 hours a day, every single day. Well, after a couple months, either you're just gonna break down and have to quit, or your body is going to grow. There's no way your body is not going to adapt by building bigger muscle. The examples of building muscle outside of the gym are really endless. So to start off with, you need to understand that the body is incredibly adaptable. Following a proper strength training program with a barbell, an untrained person can put on their first 10 to 20 pounds of muscle in just 1 year. An untrained person will grow from pretty much any tension-related stimulus. The problem with many methods of building muscle and what makes barbells so convenient and effective is the basic principle of progressive overload. With a barbell, you can continue adding weight in incremental amounts and just keep getting stronger forever, and that's gonna lead to more and more growth. Whereas you may tap out, say you're trying to do swimming. You may tap out all the muscle you're gonna build from swimming at, say, 10 pounds, and at a certain point, it becomes unreasonable for you to continue building muscle just from swimming. When discussing this topic from that perspective, you could say that barbells and the gym is optimal. The gym is probably the fastest way to get bigger and stronger. I don't disagree with that. But when we're talking about beginners specifically, who will grow from pretty much anything, optimal isn't always necessary. And when we're thinking in terms of learning a skill versus going to the gym specifically to build muscle, you might say it depends on which skill you're after. In that swimming example, you could spend the rest of your life incrementally getting better, cutting just a little bit of time off your lap as you go on. You could do that. But you could also say that the skill ceiling for swimming is relatively low. It's not going to take that long for your body to adapt and to learn the basic patterns of swimming, the basic strokes, and to get used to swimming a few laps. Maybe you'll tap out at 10 pounds of muscle. Maybe you're able to add another 5 to 10 if you really push it hard and you're eating enough. But the skill ceiling is pretty low. So if we're talking in terms of progressive overload, that might not be the best option. But say, if we're talking in terms of learning the planche, well, if you're stuck at a planche lean, it's gonna take you adding a bit more muscle to your frame to get to a tuck planche. And then to go from a tuck planche to a full planche, it's gonna take considerably more muscle on your frame to get to that point. And in that way, if you choose the right skill, you are able to use the basic principle of progressive overload and build muscle. But what about the manual labor example? What about the mechanic who turns a wrench all day and gets massive forearms? Viewed from the traditional standpoint, progressive overload stops taking place very quickly. The skill ceiling for turning a wrench, it's very low. It's not going to take you long to learn to turn a wrench as fast as you ever will, or to grip it as tight as you ever will. The real skill in turning a wrench is knowing when to turn the wrench. So why do these guys get big forearms? Well, that's because progressive overload doesn't always need to take place for muscle growth to happen. There's another way to do it, and that's through volume accumulation. And over the last 6 months, I proved to myself that this concept is real, that it works. The majority of what I did to build the width of my back was just jump volume on pull-ups. I didn't really induce progressive overload in the traditional way. All I did was accumulate a lot of volume and my lats got wider. So going back to the example of swimming, within the confines of swimming 1 hour a day, maybe you've maxed out your growth potential at 10 to 15 pounds of muscle just by getting better at swimming during that 1 hour. Logic would say if you upped that 1 hour to 2 hours, now you have more potential for growth just through volume accumulation. At a certain point, obviously it becomes unreasonable, but I'm just trying to prove something here. And while we're on the topic of swimming, there is something else you should think about. Maybe swimming isn't nearly as efficient at building muscle as, say, lifting a barbell is, but at a certain point, there's only so much muscle you can hope to add to your frame on a daily basis. So maybe you're able to get to that point through 45 minutes of barbell training, but barbell training is also very taxing, and if you try to do any more, you're going to run into a wall and go backwards. Whereas with swimming, maybe it takes you 2-3 hours to get to that same point of max muscle growth, but you still got there, and you also had fun learning a skill along the way. And while it may seem unreasonable to you to go swim 3 hours a day just to get the same amount of muscle you could get with 45 minutes with a barbell, skill acquisition is a great motivator. If swimming is the thing you've decided you want to pursue, then you're going to be happy swimming 3 hours a day. It's like a game to you. Going to the gym might be like checking off a list of chores, whereas swimming, you're enjoying it the whole time. And this can also lead to more long-term adherence. Now, don't get me wrong here. What I'm describing is basically a perfect world that doesn't exist. Obviously, swimming 3 hours a day isn't going to make you look the same as lifting a barbell 45 minutes a day. I'm just trying to prove a point that you can build muscle from something besides the gym. Well, at this point in the video, I think it would be beneficial to discuss the why. If going to the gym is the most efficient and effective way to build bigger and stronger muscles, why wouldn't you just do that? Why would you pursue a skill instead? Well, there are a few main reasons, but mainly because it's fun. Learning a new skill is fun, it's enjoyable, and it can give life a purpose. A life without a hobby can be very dull. And don't get me wrong here, I love the iron game, and I will continue lifting barbells for the rest of my life if I can. If the only form of physical activity I could ever do was going to a gym and lifting a barbell, I would be happy with that. Lifting is a worthwhile skill worth going after in and of itself. But at a certain point, unless you decide you want to go into some type of lifting sport like, say, powerlifting or Olympic lifting, where everything is very technical and the skill ceiling is very high, you're going to reach your ceiling of knowledge at a certain point. And don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying you can't keep learning forever. I am still learning new things, and I am still actively seeking out new information on a daily basis. But let's be honest with ourselves. If you've already been lifting for a good, 5 to 10 years, a lot of the stuff that you read every single day is stuff you've already heard before. The only thing you can do with a lot of that knowledge is try it out on yourself, and that's going to take time. Compare this to working at a job that you've been at for, say, 3 years already. On a daily basis, how much knowledge are you acquiring every day at that job? It's next to nothing. You already know what to do, you're just kind of going through the motions. Now compare that to a job you just started out with. For those first couple weeks, the first couple months even, every single day you're learning so much new information, it's just enjoyable. It's enjoyable to be a beginner at something. And this is another reason why learning a skill, even if you already have been lifting in the gym, it's worthwhile. Because being a beginner is fun. It allows you to learn a lot very quickly. And while we're on the topic of why, here's another big one for you. For many people, going to the gym is a means to an end, right? You go to the gym so you can lift weights, so you can get the end result, which is bigger muscles or more strength or whatever. Some people, myself included, we kind of like lifting weights. We like the act of lifting itself, so we go for that. But in the back of our minds, there's always that thought that we can't wait to get that end result from it. But a skill is an end in and of itself. Consider a dancer. A dancer doesn't dance so that they can get to the end of the song. A dancer dances because they like dancing. And this is a huge distinguishing factor between a skill and doing lifting so that you can get muscle. Doing a skill for the sake of a skill is an entirely different thing. And humans, as a species in general, have a very bad habit of always putting off life for the future. There's always got to be some roadblock in your way that you need to conquer in order to actually start living. But once you conquer that one roadblock, you set up another one, and you might not ever actually make it there. It's like when you're in high school and you think life will actually start when I get to college. Then you're in college and you think life will actually start when I get that job. Then it's the promotion, then it's retirement, and then you die, and you might not have ever made it there. Well, comparing this to lifting and everything else I've said, a problem with a lot of guys, and if I'm being honest, this was me too. Before I started lifting, I thought, once I get muscle, my life can start. Once I get big enough, I can actually start living, I can start learning cool things, and I can make friends or whatever it is. And I'm telling you now, right now, I have more muscle than I wanted when I started. You know, I'm not the biggest guy, but I built a lot more muscle than I ever could have hoped. And it feels exactly the same. You just want more. You feel like, well, if I had a little more, then I could actually be someone who has something worthwhile saying. Then people will actually listen to me or whatever. So when we're talking about skill acquisition, don't wait. Do it now. You don't need to wait until you have a certain level of strength or muscle or whatever, because you're always going to set another barrier. So if you want to learn a skill, just do it now. Well, at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, I don't care about that. I don't care about learning a skill. All I want is bigger muscles. That's all I care about. Skills are stupid. My life's goal is to build the biggest muscles I possibly can. And that's fine. But at a certain point, you're going to get most of it. At a certain point, all you can realistically add in an entire year of lifting is maybe ½ pound, 1 pound of muscle, and you might start to feel a little bit cheated. You might start to feel like all that effort you're putting in for this one singular purpose isn't really giving you the return on investment that you want, and you feel cheated. And a little side note, I plan on pushing at that point. I feel like it's worth it, and a ½ pound of muscle is still worth it, and I would encourage anyone to keep pushing. But rather than just taking that one straight head-on approach, you can maybe take a little bit of a side route and still focus on trying to add that ½ pound of muscle a year, but focus on a skill where the feedback loop is much more instant. You're able to actually learn things and you're seeing actual results for what you're putting in on a daily basis. Up until this point, I've been talking mainly in extremes. I've been pitting the gym against everything else, but it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe you love lifting, but you want to broaden your horizons or expand your love of the gym into something else. I love thinking of it like that. Rather than choosing something over the gym, how can my gym knowledge and skill expand to envelop and acquire new traits and abilities from other areas? And you know, at this point, I can't really help it. Everything I do is somewhat done with bodybuilding in the back of my mind. It's impossible for me to think of learning a skill in terms of the thing itself alone. At least part of me will always be thinking, will learning this skill also make me bigger and stronger in the process? And that's okay. I know a lot of you guys would be like that too. You just can't help it. Bodybuilding is fun and it's addictive. This may narrow the possibilities of what skill you could choose to learn because it needs to meet the basic requirements of also making you bigger and stronger. But there's still a whole world of possibility. There's still many things you could choose to do. I like stone lifting. I've been doing that for a while, and it has expanded the gym to me in a major way. And guess what? I've also become much bigger and stronger because of it. Okay, so maybe you're still not convinced. Maybe you love the gym so much that you have no intention of trying to learn anything else that doesn't have to do with the gym. Well, to you, I would say, rather than thinking in terms of what skill can I learn that will eventually take away from my gym time, you could think, what can this skill offer me that the gym can't? And in addition to that, you may also think, what skill requires me to get bigger and stronger in a way that is hard to replicate in the gym in order for me to get good at that skill? What skill inherently requires me to get bigger and stronger to get good at it? And I know if I'm not careful, this will become a video about stone lifting, but that's not the point. I just use it as an example because I'm familiar with it and I like it, but you could use anything. So to put things plainly, when I started odd object lifting, I quickly realized that it offered me something that would be hard to replicate in the gym. I quickly realized that many stabilizer muscles in my body, many tendons, were underdeveloped. And once I spent a good amount of time strengthening all that stuff and went back to the gym, it translated directly to more power. Right now, it's very popular to talk about stability when you're talking about bodybuilding, and with good reason. The more stable you are in a movement, the more tension you're able to put on the prime movers. Think a seated overhead press versus a standing one. Well, once I developed all of my stability muscles and became more stable just as a whole, as myself, when I came back to the gym, I was instantly stronger. I was able to use more weight on free weighted movements, and that led to more muscle. And I personally think that some aspects of training are better developed outside of the gym. Take strength endurance, for example. Calisthenics is perfect for this. You can do endless reps over an extended period of time, become a strength endurance machine, and it's not going to wear you down like a barbell would. And back to stone lifting again, I think stone lifting is better at making you more generally powerful than, say, the snatch or clean and jerk. When it comes to a barbell, the snatch and clean and jerk are the ultimate expressions of power, but the environment is always exactly the same. It's always the same barbell with the same width, and the plates always raise that barbell to the exact same height. But with stone lifting, every natural stone is different. You got to approach everything from a different angle, and when you try to toss that thing up onto your shoulder, it's going to be different every time. And I think that this will lead to a more general and well-rounded power. And you can also think of this whole thing in terms of conjugate if you want. If you're running a conjugate program, you're going to rotate variations of a lift and become more generally strong. Well, you can also rotate skill sets for even more general strength. Think of it like this. Say right here, this is lifting. Everything within here is all of the different lifts, all of this. Well, if you condense this into one skill set, lifting, well, then you have a bunch of different skill sets all around, and if you rotate those, you're going to become even more generally strong. So maybe this is all just a bit overwhelming. Maybe you're interested. Maybe you've liked the things that I have said thus far, but you have no idea where you would begin. What would you even do? Well, if you're a beginner and you've never touched a weight before, which I kind of doubt if you're watching this video, but if that is the case, well, like I said at the beginning of the video, the first 10 pounds of muscle, that's not really that hard to build. Beginners will grow from pretty much any training stimulus, so just do something that you find enjoyable. It could be the gym, it could be calisthenics, it could be riding a bike, whatever. And if you have been going to the gym for a while, and maybe you're just looking to broaden your horizons, well, just start small. Maybe your gym has a sandbag and you pick it up for the first time. Or if it doesn't, maybe buy one yourself. They're pretty cheap. Try walking around carrying that thing or throwing it on your shoulder. Maybe your gym has a sled. You try pushing it for the first time. Or maybe you try doing some jump training. Jump onto a box. It doesn't have to be anything major. Just broaden your horizons a little bit at a time. And what you'll slowly start to notice is, if this was your original gym bubble, this is what your concept of the gym was, it's slowly going to expand, and more things will be within that, the confines of what a gym is to you. And along the way, you might find something that you really like doing. And if that's the case, it might start to take over your training, and now your training has a whole new meaning. And that's it, guys. I hope you got something from this video. Remember, there's nothing wrong with the gym. Nothing is better or worse than anything else. Do whatever you want because it's your life. But there is more to life than just the gym. And if up until now, all you've been doing is training with barbells, there might be more out there for you. It might be worth it to you to broaden your horizons. So I hope you guys liked the video, and until next time, thanks for watching.